Okay.
Yeah.
Hello everybody and Morag. Moi. This is Dave the Rave, Roving the Rock, on aaronsounddistalradio.com and also on YouTube. And Aaron Sound has asked me to interview, in this case, my sister, my little sister Mo. So I better actually, first of all, establish, why is it I'm interviewing you, just roughly, Mo? What are you doing?
I am cycling from Land's End to John O'Groats. I am taking a slightly different route, perhaps, than the normal, which is I've decided I would like to stay on the Sustran cycle paths the whole way. And Sustran have produced a book, which is amazing. Gosh, actually, I don't have it here, but they produced a book and, in fact, a GPX file, which goes onto a GPS system for the whole route. So I can follow the book and I can follow my GPS so I don't get lost. And it takes me through B-roads and through cycle paths on canalways, that kind of thing.
Back to the first question then, which I should have asked. So who are you exactly, and what are your passions?
Okay, what are my passions is quite hard. Okay, so I am Morag Black, and I am the sister of David Black, yeah. And a number of other siblings. Who am I? That's about all I can really say. That's who I am. And my passions are being outside. That's a kind of big part of my life, being an outside person.
Yeah.
Part of that is cycling. That's one of the things that I do outside. So I also do things like chainsawing wood and that kind of thing. But cycling is my main form of transport, and it is what I love to do. It just makes me feel great. So that would be my passions. It's really being outside.
Okay, that's it. Being outside.
Much like yourself.
What's that?
Much like yourself.
Yeah, that's it. I just love being outside, and in fact, that's part of the reason why you live in a boat actually instead of in a house, don't you? Because you like to be in touch with the outside.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, it's all part of. It's funny thing because I can say to people, part of being in a boat is being outside, and yet I can't really explain why it is that living in a boat makes you go outside more. I think maybe, it's we actually talked about this before, didn't we? Maybe it's like you hear the rain on the roof more, so you're more aware of the weather or when it's not raining and that kind of thing. Yeah. I guess as well, because I do chop up my own wood. Yeah. That means you're outside a bit more perhaps as well, that kind of thing. But you just are. It automatically draws you out living in a boat more than it would if you're in a house. Yeah. I think you're probably more aware. Yeah, you're more aware that even though it's supposed to be a bit of a rubbish day, in fact, this present moment is okay. So out you go. I think that's probably why you end up being outside more when you're living in a boat.
Okay. So, what is your job?
Well, if you'd asked me that 2 weeks ago, I could have given you an answer. So I have just taken redundancy from my job that I had, which was as a lecturer in a college. And so 2 weeks ago, I was a lecturer, and today I am no longer.
Yeah, that's it. So you finished 2 weeks ago, and after a lifetime of working up until this point, and do you mind saying what age you are?
I am 55 years old.
That's right, she's telling the truth. I know this. And okay, so you've got all this free time. So just to ask, that's related to you doing this cycle, obviously. So this is, I'm supposing, a bit of a celebration of freedom, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was, so the job, the teaching that I was doing, I did for 20 years, and this is a kind of marker, I suppose, as the end of a chapter. Yeah. In my life. That's what I would say. I'm not saying that I'm not going to work again. I don't really know exactly what I'm going to do ahead, but this cycle kind of marks the end of a particular period in my life, really.
Yeah, and just to be blunt about it, you were a college lecturer, and just to wrap it up in one sentence, you taught one subject, and then they told you had to teach every subject to everybody, even if you didn't know anything about it, and it meant that you were working till 11 at night and things, trying to cram subjects just to teach them something.
Yeah, it's also, I'm in computing, so obviously it can be quite wide, but then also it can be extremely difficult to teach because you want to do things in your teaching environment that aren't safe for the college's environment. So they want to keep their network safe, but you're trying to, because it's cybersecurity and networking I taught, so you're needing to teach students certain things that you aren't really able to teach properly in the college. So I was still doing quite a lot of teaching from home, which I don't actually agree with being correct for the students and so on. So it was just time to say, right, that's it. I've had enough now. I'm going to do something different.
That's fine. So you ended up applying for redundancy and getting it, and then you only knew a few weeks ago that was going to happen. So how come you came up with this particular idea of cycling on your own with all your equipment on the bike, the length of the country, a 1,200-mile route?
Okay, so I have to admit, right, very, very luckily, I was going to leave my job anyway, right. And then the rumour of redundancy came about, so I thought, okay, I think I'll hold off. Admittedly, that was a year ago, so I actually thought I was going to be doing this quite a bit earlier. But it didn't happen until 2 weeks ago. That was my kind of final finishing kind of thing. So I could push it forward. So I was originally thinking last September I was going to do it, but that didn't work out. So I pushed it forward to May. And actually, I'm quite glad it's this time of year. So I'm cycling from Land's End up the way to John O'Groats. And had I been cycling in September, I would have been in Land's End at the end of their busy summer season. So I don't know that they'd be quite as welcoming, perhaps, to somebody doing what I'm doing. And then I would be cycling up through to Scotland if it was September time into the colder weather, into October. Well. So really, it's worked out a lot better that I am this time in at the end of April, beginning of May, starting before the tourist season started, so people aren't fed up. And I'm cycling on my way up to Scotland as the weather hopefully will improve, or at least the temperature should improve as the month goes on. That makes me...
You get better weather in the spring anyway. It's drier in Scotland in the spring, statistically. But the thing is, how did you come up with the actual decision just to cycle the length of Britain anyway? You could have done something else.
Yeah, I could have done something else. I suppose it's for me, it was the big cycle that you can do in the UK. Yeah. I mean, you could probably cycle right around all the coast or something like that. Yeah. But it just seemed a big enough challenge to be. I've done a couple of smaller cycles, and it just seemed like a kind of bigger challenge to do something of that size. Yeah. That kind of would be suitable to mark the end of that period.
Okay, so you've not done anything similar to this before, have you? Go on. You've not done anything like this before, or has nobody else has that you know of?
Well, I've done like 200, 300 mile type thing, but staying in B&Bs and Airbnb and that kind of thing along the way. So I went across England, starting in Morecambe. Yeah. So I've done that before with my partner, but this is quite different because this is on my own, and I'm not staying in B&Bs. I'm wild camping. So that's making that kind of quite a bit different, to be fair.
Okay.
People that I haven't got any close friends that have done anything like this. Yeah. So, which was kind of there isn't anywhere that you can really turn in to ask, well, what do you think of this, or what do you think of that? Should I be doing this, or should I be doing that? But I was really fortunate that about a month before I came to do it, I was introduced to somebody who has done long distance cycling, and they were just amazing. Yeah. And I mean, it completely changed the whole thing for me, because I suddenly had somebody who said, this is what I do, this is how I do it. So if I did something similar, they had done long cycles abroad. They're kind of fair weather cyclists, but if I do something similar, I carry the same number of pairs of knickers and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then I'm doing roughly. I know the guideline. I've got something. Do you carry for a month away? Do you carry 14 pairs of knickers? Do you carry 2 pairs of knickers? If you don't know,
you don't know.
You don't know. So that gave me a really good guideline as to she gave me a whole packing list. This is what I take, and I basically followed it, but warmed it up a wee bit because I was cycling in Britain and she was cycling, abroad in warmer weather.
Right.
So that really transformed it for me. It gave me the confidence to feel okay. I feel relatively ready.
Yeah.
That I have had some guidance to tell me what I need.
Okay. So
that made a big difference.
You made it harder for yourself by deciding to cycle uphill the entire journey. So you could have gone down from Scotland to England, So that's it's like vertical.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. There is a reason for doing it this way, and the reason is because the predominant wind is a southwesterly.
Oh, is it? Right.
So a southwesterly wind, if Britain is here, is blowing like this.
Yeah.
So if I'm cycling from the bottom of England up to the top of Scotland, that wind is going to hopefully push me up.
Yeah, good.
Whereas if you're cycling down the wind, you may well be travelling with the wind in your face the whole way.
Okay.
So that's why most people would go for the Land's End to John O'Groats situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was the good thing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you could always do it the other way in the future if you wanted to. Anyway, it'd still be there, and you'd be a joggler. A joggler instead of a LEJOGer.
That way. I think it would be. It would. I think it's a bit like going for a walk, and then you turn around, you walk back, and you see different things. I'm sure it would feel quite different.
Yeah.
And you could stop in different places, obviously. Yeah. So not that you could do that.
Well, that's the next question. So you're cycling uphill. What kind of bike have you decided to take to do it? Have you got mud guards and all that stuff?
Which is just as well, actually, because yesterday I ended up being taken by my GPS and through this mud bath. So it's just as well, mud guards. But so I had a bike. So I'm very much a kind of buying bicycles and Gumtree kind of person. And I had a bike, which I'd only had for about 2 years, but I'd done about 4,000 miles on it. And when I took it into the bicycle shop, they said, you're going to spend nearly as much money on fixing all the bits as you will buying it. Which, considering it was only 2 years old, you could have, But anyway, that bicycle's actually gone to my stepdaughter, and she is going to, on budget and with a bit of help, do up that bike and use it anyway. So that's good. So for the first time in my life, I got a brand new bicycle.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a brand new bike, Dave?
I got one when I was a boy in Glasgow in the 70s, but somebody nicked it. So that was the end of that.
Okay. Well, one of the bikes, you remember this, right? One of the bikes that I had, we moved to this new house, and I inherited the bike that said Elaine up the frame. Right? That's what was the name I had it before. Yeah. And you and I were on that bike. I was pedalling and you were on the saddle.
Yeah.
And the bike split in two.
Split in half. And in fact, my brother did that to one of my bikes as well. He borrowed my bike without asking me. Ended up with a car crashing into him, and the bike snapped in half that time as well. Amazingly, he didn't get hurt. I don't know how he managed that. So yes, bike snapping in half. Hopefully that's not going to happen on this trip. So what's the name of your bike that you got? What type of bike is it? Okay, so I've got a bike called a Trek FX3. That's what it's called. It's a model. And I bought it, various reasons, quite light. I won't get too technical, but quite light. It's got disc brakes. I've never had that in my life before in a bicycle. And the amazing thing about that is when you take, like say for example, I get a puncture in my front wheel, or I just need to put my bike in a car or something to move it. It's so easy to take the wheel off. You just basically unloosen the quick release lever, twirl it around a few times, and the wheel's off. And that's it. There's no deflating tires. There's nothing with brakes. You just take it off, and that's it. Yeah. So that's really great. A puncture, no problem at all with that. So that's a nice feature. And it has carbon forks. Right.
So I assume that's giving me a bit more protection against bumpy bits.
Yeah.
And it's red.
Oh, right, okay, that's important. Like
And
a
it was
chopper.
red.
Like
Yeah.
a rally chopper.
It's quite light. Aluminium is quite light. So yeah, it's the best bike I've ever had. And it also, because it's a bike that I bought for myself, it fits me properly. So that's quite nice. You know, it feels, it's probably than any other bike I've ever had actually.
Yeah.
And it feels like I fit it properly.
Yeah.
So I'm quite a tall female. So when you go to buy like a bike, for most, most females might be 5'6", or smaller or bigger, but around maybe that might be the average. But I'm 5'10", so invariably I'm actually on a bike that's a bit too small.
Yeah.
So this is quite nice to have a bike that actually fits me properly.
Good. Then you don't get injured, so that's good. The next thing is, why are you on your own and not with anybody else? I can answer that partly because I would have done it with you if I wasn't working, but I can't. So.
So I asked you.
Yeah, I know. I would have. I need to resign. I need to get made redundant. Right, Calmac, take note. We'll go back down the other way. We'll go downhill.
Right, let me know when.
Was there anybody else you wanted to take her in? Or, no, you just fancied it?
No, not really. No, I guess the kind of fact that I'm marking the end of this part of my life is quite nice to do that on my own. Yeah. That's it's quite a nice thing. I don't know how much cycling you've done with other people, but it can be, you're having to adjust to other people's riding style.
That's right.
For example, you're making maybe you're maybe faster to get up the hills, but they're going over raggedy ground quicker than you because they're more confident in their bike, whatever.
Yep.
So I mean, this isn't a reason for doing it myself, but there's a reason for enjoying doing it myself, is the fact that I don't have to compensate for other people's riding styles. The other thing, of course, is I guess it's more of a challenge doing it on your own, isn't it? Particularly doing what I'm doing the kind of wild camping. So there's that safety element, which makes it just that bit more challenging on your own. Yeah. Also, I really enjoyed, and I knew I would, the tranquility and the peace and quiet and the kind of, I mean, I'm not saying it's a pilgrimage because it was never set out to be anything like that, but it kind of feels like it now that I'm on it. Yeah. It feels like a kind of journey. Lots of thinking time, lots of just slow down time, lots of time just to look around, lots of time just to listen. Yeah. I kind of knew that it might be a bit like that, and I'm glad. I've no regrets whatsoever about doing it myself.
You've done the right thing. When I ran around Arran, I'd been thinking about running around Arran with somebody, and in fact, in the end, we hadn't practiced much together or anything, and that's the reason I did it on my own. The same, because you're only dependent on yourself. You're restricting what can go wrong. Actually, you give yourself a better chance, I think. So yeah, maybe. How did you get to the start, to the bottom of Britain?
That was easy. So there is actually a train that goes from Glasgow Central to Plymouth. And I have a friend that lives in Plymouth, so I stayed at his house the night before I started, and then the next morning I cycled down to Plymouth Station again, and I got the train to Penzance, which is the nearest station to Land's End. And then this is the slightly annoying thing. So I cycled from Penzance to Land's End, and then picture, right, here I go. And then I cycled right back to Penzance again, another 12 miles back on the route, so that's, it doesn't matter at all, but that was a kind of bit of extra mileage, obviously, that, it can't really count towards the cycle, I suppose. But I did take a different route, both ways, to Land's End and back from, so that made it a bit more interesting, I suppose. So yeah, easy. And the bike, the British Rail, or the National Rail system, they're really good with bicycles. They don't charge you for it. As long as you book your bike on, there's normally on a long journey, there's a special part of a carriage where you take the bike, you can attach it in, lock it on. Yeah. So it's pretty easy, to be honest. I was a wee bit worried about that. That's why I wanted a direct train, so I'm not taking the bike on and off. When I got to Plymouth Station, when I was going to Penzance, the lift was broken at the station. There's like 2 lifts to get to the platform. And they were really helpful, and they carried my bags, and I carried the bike, they carried the bags, worked fine. So no complaints there.
Okay.
So it was quite easy.
That's good. Apart from that, would be a wee bit. It's just about nothing went wrong when you were doing that 12 miles getting to the start, quite a bad start. I haven't even got to the start line.
Embarrassing.
Okay, but anyway, you've done well because you've done 8 days. Is that right? 8 days of cycling. You're on day 9.
Nine. Yesterday was day 9.
9, yeah. And that's when you got to your sister and little sister Nikki's, which is a third of the way up the 1,200 miles. So you've done roughly 400, haven't you?
Yes, you said that to me yesterday. And I didn't realise it was a third of the way in. That's good.
Yeah.
I thought it was maybe a quarter.
I remember.
But yeah, I counted up my miles and 400 and something miles. So yeah, you're right. Although I think maybe some of those miles might be miles that I've gone a bit wrong. So I suspect when I get to John O'Groats, my mileage will be more than 1,200. But I think it was about 420 miles I counted up this morning.
That's good.
So yeah. And right, interesting fact. Yeah. So while I was counting up the miles this morning, I also counted the amount of feet that I've gone up.
Uh-huh.
Now, of course, I don't remember what the number is exactly, but what I do remember is that it's almost exactly the same as the height of Ben Nevis times 6.
Oh, wow.
So I've climbed 6 Ben Nevis in bicycle.
In 9 days?
Yeah, quite chuffing. Yeah.
So you're cycling up Ben Nevis?
Just quite hilly.
Almost the whole of Ben Nevis every day. In fact, in Arran terms, in Isle of Arran, you're cycling up Goatfell every day. That's what you're doing there. So about 3,000 feet a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, okay, yeah, it's about that. Maybe a wee tiny wee bit over sometimes, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. That's exactly right.
Okay, so you're a third of the way
so,
there.
Yeah, quite chuffing.
How's your endurance holding out? Because you're doing what, maybe 50 miles a day with all that stuff on the bike?
I think I'm doing somewhere between 35 and 50. Some days I've done a bit more than 50. Let's say I'm doing between 35 and 55 each day, depending on the terrain. And that's where the book is so brilliant, actually. So I'm not following this book exactly because it does these daily stages, but their stages start and end in a town. So, for example, tomorrow it's Worcester to, oh no, I forgot what the name of the place is that I'm going to. What the book says, but it's about 45 miles tomorrow is the stage, right? But you end in a town, and what I've learned, which I didn't actually even realise or think about before I started, is if you're going to wild camp, you can't do that. You can't start, or you can't camp in a city or a town. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to go rural. So I can't work at the same level as this route I've got exactly because it's going from town to town, assuming that you're paying for accommodation.
Yes.
So endurance-wise, I have been very happy with how my body's coped. The beginning with all the hills, my neck, I have to admit, was really quite sore. And I did look up, and there's certain things you should make sure that you're doing, and there are quite a lot of them I know already. But there was the one thing that I wasn't doing, which actually has helped, because the uphill, obviously, you are tensing, and I was trying not to. I was kind of trying to keep my hands loose, so you are kind of tensing. Yeah. So of course that's going to affect your neck. But you're also kind of head down quite a lot as well because you're trying to get up this steep hill. Yeah. So of course you're putting strain in your neck that way as well because your head's down. Yeah. So the kind of basically the thing is like look up. So we're kind of looking up at the sky, at the clouds, that kind of thing. And stick out your chest is the idea, and that kind of forces your body a bit more upright, and that relieves the pressure in your neck. Now, as the week's gone on, as the 9 days have gone on, it's become less hilly. So I guess naturally my neck's not going to hurt as much anyway.
So, what's the weather been like so far?
I've been really lucky. So predominantly dry, some days light rain, one day terrible rain that was horrible. Yeah. And that was the day I was going over Exmoor, and oh my god, it was just horrible. It was the problem is on a wet day, if you're outside and you're camping, you can't stop. You can't stop, right? You can stop in a cafe, but if you're going over a moor and there's no shelter, you just got to keep going, right? There's no point stopping because you're just going to get cold. You're already a bit wet or soaking. I'd forgotten to re-waterproof my jacket before I left. So I'd let in a bit of water, and actually I think as well it was so heavy rain, it was hitting off my face and going down my neck and in that way. My front was soaked, and of course that it was on the face as well, so that was an unpleasant day. It was 5 hours cycling in the rain, going up a very steep hill. it was misty, it was cold, it was windy in my face. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
That was a day of endurance, but mental endurance rather than anything else.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing about that day was that was the day that I arrived in Dulverton, which was the first place that you get to once you've been over the moor. And I went into this bar, dripping wet. It was a lit fire, hallelujah. Yeah. Took off all my stuff, like leave it in the fireplace so it wasn't dripping on the carpets. And the barman was a keen cyclist as well, and he did a cycle for charity 1,500 miles a couple of years ago. And he said that. So he said, would I like to have, set my tent up in his garden, kind of thing. And just a young lad, like 25, 27, something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I arrived there, because I've just been cycling solid, I arrived there maybe kind of mid-afternoon. So it was so nice to think I can dry off and I know where I'm going to stop tonight. I don't have to worry about that now. That's a done deal. I can just relax, dry off, enjoy a coffee kind of thing, and then he was going to finish work at 6 o'clock, so then we'd go up and I could set up my tent then. And as it turned out, we got on so well, we was chatting, it was quite quiet in the pub that afternoon, that we got up to his house and he said, what are you doing? It's still raining, why don't you just come and stay in the spare bedroom? And he made a vegan meal for me that night. I stayed in the spare bedroom, he made a vegan breakfast for me the next day. He was living in his mum's house kind of thing, but it was beautiful. It was an absolutely stunning farm, but that horrible day ended up being a lovely day, meeting this really nice guy called Leo, who was such a charming boy and so kind, so no complaints about that really.
No.
Had it not been a dripping wet day, I might not have had that experience.
And you've actually had 2 people putting you up on the way, haven't you, so far, strangers?
Yeah. So my third night, I was outside a place called Bude, which is on the south coast. I'd kind of gone through that and I was kind of carrying on. And it's interesting, you're kind of cycling along, trying to assess. So it's through rural, the hills and fields and so on. So cycling along to think, is that a suitable place to ask? I'm also, most days there's been some level of rain, so you're maybe looking for a bit of shelter from the wind and the rain somewhere, so you're trying to work that out as well. And what looks like a kind of reasonable place that you might have, probably almost all the places have reasonable people, but just suss things out. And I came across this place, and they had different wee buildings in their land. It looked to me a bit like a small holding, little wee buildings, and it looked quite kind of cute, a wee bit kind of bohemian maybe, but not too hippie-ish. And I thought, no, this looks quite friendly. That's what I would say. So I went in, couldn't find anybody, so I ended up walking right round their land trying to find somebody. And there was this kind of wooden hut lodge thing, small. And I walked right round it. I was kind of like, I don't think I should be here. I was like right round the back of this building, and this young couple come out and they're like, well, hello. I could tell straight away. Straight away, even from the minute they said hello, I thought, you are lovely people, right? Yeah. Hello, how can we help you? And I said, oh, right, I was just wondering if there's any possible way I could set up my tent. And they were like, of course you can, straight away. Of course you can. We'll just go and ask mum and dad. They're up in the big house. We just live in this wee house here. So we ended up up to the house, and mum and dad were just amazing. They were just so lovely. So that was the Reeve family, and they come in, have a cup of tea, and I'm like, no, it's okay, no, come on, have a cup of tea. Of course, that was so nice, because then you get to talk to them and realise how lovely they are. And they said, don't set up your tent, stay in our annex. Yeah. That's ridiculous to set up your tent. And it was a nice night. That's ridiculous, probably daft. Stay in our annex. We've not, we're kind of working on it, we're doing it up, but it's got a full working shower. It was a lovely place. Yeah. Full working shower, bed, living room, everything, all to myself. Yeah. But that point, the lovely thing was to get a shower. So that was absolutely fab. So I got to stay there the night, and then hugs the next day when I stayed with Cheerio and all that kind of thing, and then I set off again. So yeah, how kind is that? How often do you opened up the doors to your home to a complete stranger and said, yeah, come in?
Amazing.
It does. You learn. Honestly, it puts me to shame, Dave, when I see what other people are prepared to do.
I understand.
Can I tell you another wee story?
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was again, like I was trying to find somewhere to eat my lunch, which isn't always easy because there isn't somewhere to stop and easy to stop, right? So yesterday, I came across, it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30. I came across this wee church, and I thought, okay, the steps up into the graveyard, they look kind of acceptable to sit on, and then I can have my lunch, which was like smoked haddock and salmon soup, which I was going to heat up in my stove, and some other bits and bobs, some smelly cheese, and it was, I was really looking forward to it, actually. Anyway, so I sat down in these church steps, set myself up with all to my lunch, and this car came along, and this lady said to me, do you know where I can walk my dog? And I said, I'm so sorry, I'm Scottish, I don't know. And obviously my bike's there with all the stuff on it, And she said, oh, what are you doing? All right, I'll pull in, let me come and talk to you. So she came and talked to me. And, what are you doing? Land's End, John Groats, and she said, oh, I'd really like to give to your charity. And I said, oh, no, you're okay, it's fine. Kind of thing. She went, no, I really insist, I'd really like to give to MS. And I said, okay, well, I'll show you the Just Giving page, and you can use the QR code from there. But we've no service. Neither of us had any service. She's in her purse. Gives me money to a complete stranger. She doesn't know who I am. I'm probably unlikely to be scamming her when I'm just sitting there minding my own business and she comes up to me. But all the same, right? She gives me money for the charity, and then gives me a hug and drives away.
Yeah, amazing.
When have you ever done that? When have you ever done that?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well,
that's the next thing. I mean, because you are collecting for multiple sclerosis, and you've got a Just Giving page, and I don't know much about these addresses, but I'll just read out what I've got. It's justgiving.com/page/Morag-Black, and then a long number. And they leave the long number as well.
I think so. I've actually gone on to Just Giving and I've typed in Morag Black to see it, and I can't find me.
Oh, right, okay.
So I don't know how. There are other Morag Blacks. So I don't know how. Well, I tell you what, I can maybe find the QR code. Would that be?
Yeah.
Would that be sensible? I could show it to the camera, and if the camera picks up the QR code, then we could maybe do it that way. Yeah. Do you want me to do that?
Yes. Or I've got the long number. Right, okay. I've got the long number written down. If that's what you're talking about.
No. So the QR code that you can scan a code with your phone, and it will open the camera. Right here, let me show it. I'll show it to the camera. Let's see. This just might work actually. Then, okay. Right. So it's just opening. Come on, baby. Okay, here we go. So that
is a QR code.
Is the QR code for the giving page. Okay. So you need to show your camera that code.
Right. Okay.
It should open up a link, or allow you to open up a link, which opens up the Just Giving page. Okay.
But otherwise, they can just go on Dave the Dave Roving the Rock and look up this YouTube on YouTube and look up the video, and the page will be there. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
The reason you're
I guess anybody that's watching it, look underneath.
Well, you're collecting from multiple sclerosis because her mum had multiple sclerosis, and she's been gone a long time. But she in short term, she was in a wheelchair as a 30-year-old, and she never even reached 50. So it's a bit close to your heart, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So the next question is your traffic. Is it you've been following that? It was a Sustrans route, and that keeps you away from the main roads, doesn't it?
Yeah. Listen, I've got the book here. 2 seconds. I'm just going to grab it.
Yeah, you grab it. The main thing is.
Okay, so.
I really want to know you weren't in any close scrapes with cars or anything.
Yeah, so this is the Sustran, right? So Sustran are in charge of the cycleways, okay, and they do quite a lot of different routes, but this is the one for Land's End to John Groats, and it's got what's really nice, it's full of information and it's full of maps, right. And the GPS that I've got has got a file on it that they also supply that completely guides me through this whole book. Yeah. So that's amazing, right? And the fantastic thing is that you are off-road. So it's not like you're not travelling along an A road with 60-mile-an-hour cars. You're travelling along a B road, which has got 30-mile-an-hour limit, or you're travelling along the back and the top of a village through rush hour, and you don't even realise that it is rush hour. Yeah. It's like, some days I might go for 2 hours and I've passed 3 cars.
Ah, brilliant.
That's what it's been.
So that's worked out.
I did cycle to Bristol a couple of days ago, and it wasn't nice. And the route takes you kind of through quite a busy junction, a really right in the centre busy junction. It wasn't terribly easy to see the signpost. There are a number of cyclepaths, and you're kind of like, which way am I going? And you're on a 2 or 3 lane road, and if you get it wrong, you can't easily correct yourself and turn around. So, and I didn't like it. I have to say, I didn't like it. I got lost, not drastically, but like pull in. Okay, can I cross the road? Can I then turn around? Which way am I actually going? And the GPS, to be honest, the one I have is very good on country roads when you can see, like, okay, I've got a choice, straight on, left or right. Yeah. But when you're coming to like quite a complex junction, it's a very small picture to work out exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah. And of course, you don't really want to be looking at something and really concentrating and then not seeing what's going on around you. Yeah. So I don't like the city stuff at all, to be honest. And the route has been so amazing for keeping me away from traffic. Okay. And beautiful, I mean, mixed, terrain. As I said, like canals, for example, and then you're going through forestry, and then you're going through a nature reserve, and then you're going along an old railway, quite a lot of old railways, quite a lot of canals. So you're mixing with people as opposed to mixing with cars. Yeah. So, and I'm not going fast. That's not the aim of the game here. So, I can happily cycle along with people and dogs and just take my time and let people go past me, or they'll let me past. And you just, there's no stress. There's no, push. It's just having a nice time.
Yeah, that's right. And at the end of the day, they use this word like customer experience all the time to sell you things, when you go to hotels or restaurants or whatever, and they're selling an experience. Actually, your experience is making you happy, and it's not even costing anything particularly. So it goes to show that you really don't need to spend money to have an experience. It's
no, you're right.
You're enjoying it.
You're absolutely right. By the way, I could, I have just been made redundant. I could obviously afford to go to B&Bs, so don't be feeling sorry for me, like, that I can't do that. But part of the reason that I'm doing the wild camping is because it allows me to say, I'm going to stop where I want to stop tonight. No, I've got to get to this place by a particular time. Yeah. So that is actually the thing that's completely made me feel free in this whole thing, this whole trip, is that I don't have to, I'm not thinking I've got to get somewhere. Yesterday, when I was meeting Nikki, as much as she was like, oh, it's fine, anytime, I'll be there at 3:30, I can see you whenever. I started off cycling along a canal, and it was really, really bumpy. I'd actually gone off the Sustrand a wee bit, right. Because I wanted to just stay on this one canal, but it isn't an official path, so I'm going through mud and on grass and that kind of thing. And I started getting frustrated because I know that I've got, this is at 8:30 in the morning, I've got a 3:30 deadline to meet my wee sister, and I want to try and be there at the right time, right? So from the very beginning, 8:30 in the morning, I'm like, oh, so I actually pulled off the canal because I was like, this is taking far too much time, and I went a faster route to get on my way, right? And then, unfortunately, the GPS wasn't right yesterday, so I cycling along, got to this pub, and there's this bridge supposed to be over the River Severn, which is not, as you know, a narrowest of rivers. And I got there, it was like there's nothing at all. It's just like the river squishing along and a slip going into the river. And I was like, oh, okay. I said to a guy, my GPS says there's a crossing here. No, it hasn't been for many, many years. So, all right, okay. So then, right now, because I was meeting Nikki, I hadn't charged my battery pack, so I'll get all the charge I want at Nikki's house. And then my phone had some charge, but I hadn't expected to use it for Google Maps, which is now what I'm having to switch on to because I can't use my GPS anymore because it's wrong. So then suddenly I'm like, oh no, right, the stress of that whole thing, right? And then I'm now late because I've got to go all the way back. It took me 20 miles to actually go back on track onto the GPS. It wasn't like 20 wasted miles because I'm obviously going roughly the right direction. I'm just on the wrong side of the river, and it's obviously taking a bit longer to try and work it all out. So it's like, it's that stressy thing starts coming because you've got a time deadline. Yeah. You're like, all right, okay. And then, right, I found the psychopath again, like, hallelujah, right, I found the psychopath. And then it took me into this mud bog, which I couldn't even cycle through it. Yeah, it was terrible. The worst I've had all the holiday, that's me including going off even the Sustrand stuff into worst terrain. And this was actually part of the Sustrand route. So I had to get off and walk. My shoes were just like sodden with mud, and my bike was so full of mud that I was finding it hard when I got on the road eventually to turn the wheels, because all of the mud was stuffed between the tyre and the mudguard.
Yeah.
So stop, get a stick, tried to clean it out, didn't do a good enough job. Trying to cycle, gosh, it was heavy going. Stop, get another stick, try to clean it out. Meanwhile, time's going past. I'm supposed to be meeting Nikki. Yeah. Now I'm going to be an hour late, The phone's running out of charge, right? And that's somebody who's flexible and is prepared to wait for me.
Yeah.
But you're still like, oh, so that's been the wonderful thing about the wild camping, is that there's none of that. I can get anywhere for any particular time.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you don't have any other deadlines coming up after that, as far as I know, so that was the only time.
No.
Yeah, that's good. So, you're going to leave Nikki's probably tomorrow, and then you're heading up, and you're going to take another 2 or 3 weeks really to complete this, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. I think probably if I wasn't to stop again, like take a day off like I have today, I think it would take me about another 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. I guess if I take a day or two off, it might take me a little bit longer than that.
Yeah. And you can see how you go.
So yeah. And to be honest with you, part of me is quite looking forward to getting to Scotland, just from the aspect of that you're allowed to camp wherever you want in Scotland. So that's concern, like, although I sleep well and I can sleep through anything, there is that slight concern of what if somebody comes along and says, get off my land, that kind of, you're not allowed on here. And I haven't really stopped. I've stopped in public land more than like stopped in somebody's field without asking them permission. But all the same, I almost tied my head onto a no camping sign the other night, like that's how close I was to the no camping sign. I definitely shouldn't have been there. It was very obvious I shouldn't have been camping there. Right. But you're not supposed to be camping anywhere in England, that's the idea. So I'll be quite relieved when I get to Scotland from that point of view, that slight thing hanging over me about this is going. It's just then I've got to find a safe place rather than being illegal, I suppose.
Yeah.
Am I too long, Dave? Am I giving you too long an answer?
It doesn't matter. It's just like this is just like your cycle. You can talk for as long as you like because there's no deadlines. We're just rabbiting. So that's the thing. It's quite good, isn't it? No deadlines. So, what's been the most memorable thing that you've seen, would you say?
Memorable thing that I've seen. Yeah, it's difficult. It's quite a difficult one because I've particularly at the beginning, right? It's only the last couple of days that I've done anything touristy. Yeah. To be honest, everything else before that was just doing the cycle. The kind of whole setting up camp, taking down camp, getting your shopping, all that kind of stuff. It does. I know it sounds ridiculous, but on top of the cycling, does take time. And honestly. I haven't really had. It's not like when I'm sitting there going, "Oh, I have nothing to do" at any point. So what I would say, the thing that I would probably take away from this would be so the countryside has just been amazing. I'm actually really surprised at how little litter there is. There's hardly any. Right. So I go abroad and I go, "Wow, this is just amazing. This is nothing like Britain. It's so clean." And actually, everywhere I've been has been really, really clean. Right, good. Occasional, about 5 times, terrible people have dumped beds and mattresses and stuff like that at the side of the road. But actually, from a litter point of view, blooming heck's been amazing. And maybe that is because it's more rural. Well, I guess it will be. Yep. But I've been really surprised at that. That's been lovely. So I know what you're saying, what will I remember? But I'll remember, like the most memorable thing would obviously be the beautiful countryside that I've been cycling through. And how lovely it all looks and how well it seems to be looked after, to be honest.
Yeah, good.
Now, apart from that, obviously it's going to be the people that I've spoken to,
amazing.
And the people that have been kind. That, but if you're saying what thing will I remember, the thing would be, so far, just how amazing the actual countryside has been, how beautiful it is.
But the people were even more amazing, actually, in a way, weren't they? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, exactly. Oh, I mean, honestly, right, and I was saying this to Nikki, our wee sister, the other day, but, as I'm cycling along, I honestly feel almost euphoric. Yeah. It is absolutely lovely. Right. Looking at beautiful flowers at the side, wildflowers at the side of the road. Obviously, there's all sorts of animals, farm animals, and then wild animals. I've seen quite a lot of hares running, which are quite big hares.
Yeah.
Hares running around. I've seen deer. Lots and lots of birds of prey. I saw a white heron the other day. I haven't seen a white heron before.
Right.
So there's some beautiful, lots and lots of wee goldfinches with a wee yellow bit in their wing and the wee red face. Lots of them. That has just made me feel so good. That has been so lovely. But yeah, apart from that, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to say about the people. I know I've kind of touched on this a few times, but the kind people had blown me away.
Yeah.
I knew. You see the news, and an awful lot of the news is really about how bad people are.
Yeah.
And actually, 90-something, it's got to be way up the 90% of people are really good people.
Yeah.
And that's what's come through, is how, to the simplest of things, like a lady the other day, she stopped and she took a photo for me, so I could kind of load it up onto Facebook. And she said to me, "What's your name?" And there's a donation from her and her wee dog on just, she doesn't know, amazing, just simple acts of kindness. Another one, I pulled into a cycle the other night, and then I head to this camper van. I said to this camper van, I was cycling through, and before I even set up camp, or with a glass of wine, olives, and some crisps for me. Now, how nice is that,
Yeah.
So yeah, just amazing. So kind people, really, honestly.
Yeah.
Right, I'll shut up a bit.
Well, this is the last question, really, which is, what are you going to do once assuming you're going to complete it, which it looks like you will, in a euphoric state. So you're just going to take it easy after that. I know you don't really have a plan, but you don't need to. But do you think you might cycle across America or something like that?
No, I definitely won't. But what I will do is a lot more cycling in Scotland. I like the idea of being able to set up camp legitimately. That's the worry factor in England. I don't like that kind of breaking the law type aspect. I'm definitely, because we are so unique in Scotland that we're allowed to do that. I actually am not aware of another country that does that. There may well be. I'd love to hear if there was, but we are so unique that I haven't explored an awful lot of Scotland, and I realise that I can.
Yeah.
That's I can.
Yeah.
And I've got all the gear now, which is fantastic. I've got all the stuff that I need. So I would definitely do that. Explore Scotland. I won't probably do. I don't know. I can't see that, but I'm not thinking that I will do any other big cycle abroad or anything like that.
Yeah.
What I've loved, the freedom of this cycle has actually made me think. Don't make plans. Don't be thinking, this is what I'm going to do after that, and this is what I'm going to do after that. Go with the flow a wee bit. And I finished working as a lecturer. I would like to continue working as something, but I don't need to know what that is right now. No. I can go with the flow as the time comes, rather than kind of pushing and planning and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's been good for me for that.
Yeah. Terrific. Okay. Well, it's good to speak to you. I hope you have more euphoric days and nights, and enjoy yourself. Just take your time and make the most of it. I wish I was doing it as well. Maybe next time. Maybe go downhill into the wind. Okay, well, good luck with the rest of it, and I'll keep posting on Facebook. You keep doing that as well, and we'll follow your progress on Facebook as well.
Okay, brilliant.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye.